Today, for the first time, we're speaking with one of the hostages released from Hamas custody. Keith Siegel is from Chapel Hill. He spent over a year in captivity and was released earlier this year. He was one of 30 hostages released as part of a ceasefire agreement back in February. These are the faces of a few of the other hostages released at that time. This week, 20 more living hostages were released. These were the final living hostages in Hamas custody. Their freedom comes as part of a peace deal brokered by the U.S. Keith Siegel has been free for about 8 months. He's released a video statement, visited the White House, and sat down for an interview with NBC. Today, he sat down for an interview with WRAL. We talked about his time in captivity, what he saw, what he heard. We talked about his release, his freedom, and where he goes from here. We're going to post a longer video of our conversation on the WRAL YouTube page, but there's a big chunk of it here for you now. Keith, it's really good to chat with you.
Thank you.
You were in captivity for 484 days, and then you were released, and it took no time at all for you to completely pivot to campaigning to get these hostages released. So a lot of, the work that you have put in has paid off. Can you walk me back to when you were released and give us a sense of what it feels like, what these hostages have just gone through this week? You've been there. What does that feel like?
Yes, so as you said, I was released after 484 days in captivity. I can only tell you what my experience was, but I was feeling incredibly grateful and thankful, and this miraculous being back with my family, something that I wasn't sure would ever happen.
Can you give me a sense of those initial days of your release when you were trying to acclimate? Can you help paint a picture of what that was like, your body physically trying to acclimate, not just your mind?
And the thoughts that were in my mind before I met my my wife and my son was just to make sure as much as I can that they see that I'm okay. Again, both physically and mentally. So, and also making sure, trying to, 484 days, I never, not one day or 1 minute of that time, I felt clean. And I went for weeks without having an opportunity to, I call it, put water on my body, because it's not a shower. I mean, even when I had opportunities to put water on my body to quote unquote clean my body, I never felt clean, because I didn't, the conditions there were not, it wasn't possible to properly clean my body. So actually at this army base, before I met my wife and my son, I literally scrubbed my body 3 times with this, like, it's not a scouring pad, but it's a plastic thing that you scrub your body with. I'm not sure what it's called in English, but I did that 3 times. And when I was in there, the doctor came into the room, I think 3 times, just to ask if I was okay. And knowing that my wife and my son were waiting for me, and I was waiting I was just wanting to see them as soon as possible, and knowing that they wanted to see me as soon as possible. But I wanted to make sure my body was clean before that meeting.
I understand that the hospital where the released hostages are taken to have to provide special sheets because the skin is so sensitive after all of that time spent in the tunnels. Did you have that same experience?
I was moved around 33 times throughout my time in captivity, relocated. And I spent, the conditions that I experienced varied. I was in tunnels. I was in a school with Palestinian civilians, like, all around. And I was only allowed to go to the toilet in the dark. So that meant before sunrise and after sunset. And so I experienced, but what was dominant throughout my time in captivity was being held in darkness. So even though I wasn't in a tunnel for most of the time, I was in dark rooms.
When I spoke with your wife, Aviva, she relayed a story about when you were both separated, when you were both taken into captivity. She was released after a couple of months, and you were separated. And I wonder how that felt for you, being separated from your wife while you are being held back in captivity for an, at the time, unknown period.
I was very, very relieved that Aviva was going to be released, hoping that this was actually the case. And I never knew if Aviva had made it back because I only saw her getting into the Red Cross car and taking off. So I stayed, and I stayed with a woman that we had been with for almost a month before, all through that. And this woman went through, I actually witnessed her being beaten and being literally tortured. And I saw other, acts of abuse and violence. And I think I mentioned they threatened to kill me. They pointed weapons at me. Again, just being totally disconnected from my family and knowing that they have no idea what's happening to me. They don't know if I'm alive. That was just so stressful for me to think about them. I was constantly trying to send messages to them, I would close my eyes and I would picture their face in my imagination, and I would wait till I had a clear picture, and I would tell them that I'm okay.
Now that we've entered this next phase, now that the hostages have been released, where do things go from here for you?
This horrific situation is not over. As long as there's still hostages, and there are still deceased hostages being held by Hamas terrorists in Gaza, until all of them are home, we are still in a tragic situation.
While there is still the fight to get all the remaining hostages back home, and just the overall campaign for everyone's safety, of course, there's the displacement of tens of thousands of people and the killing of tens of thousands of people in Gaza, the Palestinians. Aviva told me when I interviewed her that her heart really went out to all of the families that were broken in Gaza as well, the Palestinians. Where do you sit with all of that?
My heart goes out to any innocent human being in the world, including in Gaza, that has been harmed in any way by all of this situation. I really hope and I pray for a day when we will live in peace with all of our neighbors, and I think every innocent, decent, moral, humane person deserves that.
Do you have any message for the people of North Carolina, where you grew up?
I was amazed to be released and to come to know the enormous support of so many people all over the world. And all of you who have been active and in many ways, whatever, in supporting my release and the other hostages' release and being active in bringing peace. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and just hope and pray for peace for all of you, peace and security and good health for you and all people everywhere in the world.
You have worked tirelessly since your release, so thank you for all of that, and I hope that you get to connect with your friends who you have made in the most horrible way in captivity. I hope that you get to connect with them soon, and once again, thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you very much for having me.